to his impact on this planet, and he starts expounding a good little bit on the earth itself. But what's intriguing to me is that he created the entire universe. And by the way, that included everything. Everything. Sun, moon, stars, quasars, black, all of them. Everything. And he sums it up in like a verse. We hardly know anything about it. We don't know exactly how he did it. All we know is that he did it, and he summed it up in just a brief statement. The part that he ends up magnifying is the part that deals with our world. Then he goes into a little bit more detail on how things on the planet came about. As it concerns the lesson of character that we get from that, the greatest part of your effectiveness in this world is going to have very little to do with what people see of you right now. It's going to have a lot to do with the invisible things. That wrestling match that you have on the inside, that you've had for your entire life. How you and God are interacting. What you're allowing God to create in you through this working with Him. That character, your daily choices, things that they don't see. And some of those things, some of the things that we build are, we happen to be thinking right at the moment. And then other things we just learn through a bunch of failure. Matter of fact, most of us learn best through failure. It's those hidden things. There's a bunch of experience there. And there's a lot of pain there. And there is some happiness there. But that's the stuff that the real changers in this world are made of. The invisible qualities. The unseen struggles. And when we come upon this world and we go about to implement change, pretty much the only thing that they're going to notice is what you actually brought to their life. It's just the way it is. Where you came from and how you got to where you are is not so much appreciated. They go more by what they see. But as for you, you don't worry about what they see. That to you, that's irrelevant. The only value of that is the model, the example that you're setting. But what really matters is that hidden quality of the heart, the character. That's really what you're bringing to the table. Your talent and your skill, that stuff only goes so far, and those of us who've lived a little while, we know that. It's what the character is what matters the most. I remember Einstein once said, he goes, you would think that it's intelligence, great intelligence that makes for a great scientist. He says, that's wrong. It's always the character. It's always the character. What kind of human are you? And so that one half of a verse or a verse, whatever, he sums up the entire universe. It's just remarkable to me, all these things. I encourage you to just let God win. Just, let him win. Because what you're about to do in this world, especially the younger ones of you, but even the older ones, you're here on purpose. We need everything that you bring to the table. You're not allowed to retire. You quit your job, whatever, but you're not allowed to retire. We need you. And we need everything that you bring to the table, both the good and the bad. We really do need you. We really do. Character matters the most. In this generation, we have all kinds of devices and gadgets and everything else. But what we lack is what you guys have. On the inside, the character that has been forged through a lot of hardship, successes and failures, relationships that worked and others that didn't, our marriages, we've taken a beating, and then other times we've gleaned some good stuff. Well, the world needs all that. So bring it. The next thing I like to focus on and what God did in this creation thing, and He's telling us, by the way, everything you see revealed in Genesis is God relating with us. Trust me that He doesn't have to create the way you saw Him do that. Folks, He's not in time. He's not bound by our rules. So anything you see in Genesis is God trying to speak our language. He's not like us, everyone. He doesn't need a past in order to establish a future like we do. We have to create an appropriate past for what we want to see manifest. God is not subject to our rules. He's not subject to time. So everything you see in the book of Genesis, He's trying to talk to us. He's trying to speak our language so that we will know how to behave in this world as sons and daughters of God. That first one again dealt with character. The second one is how we deal when darkness shrouds the earth. He's doing this on purpose, where you can actually stand on the deep and look up and you see nothing. There's dense darkness. The earth in its younger years was completely surrounded with this thick gaseous layer. And if you were standing on the oceans, you looked up, you could see nothing. You couldn't even see yourself. Dense darkness. He stands in the middle of it. He does this on purpose. On purpose. Folks, God doesn't have to stand anywhere. Where is He? He's doing this all for you. When it seems as if everything is dark, the whole world is going nuts, He encourages His sons and daughters to stand right in the middle of it and declare, let there be light. Don't be afraid to speak what you know. You know, in our time, there's a great intimidating factor that's coming upon men. Many of you are afraid. You don't even know how to respond to blacks now. I mean, because of the Black Lives Matter stuff. Guys, and you church folk, y'all do some stuff. Why do we shift from the lessons of character as it comes to dealing with our fellow man, and then we run to what the media says we ought to be thinking and doing and saying? Some of you are apologizing for things that you had nothing to do with. What are you apologizing for? It's just, some of the stuff to me is just bizarre. What are you apologizing for? I heard one man say, well, he was a pastor, and he says, Alfred, look, and by the way, I'm not going to politics, just bear with me for a moment. He says, he was talking about Black Lives Matter. And so there was a leader that had given him an analogy about the Black Lives Matter, and he says, look, when we say that Black Lives Matter, what we're actually saying is, okay, let's imagine all lives matter. So let's agree, this is what the Black Lives Matter guy said to the other guy. Let's imagine that all lives matter, like you conservatives say or whatever, you Christians. Well, all we're saying is this. If all lives matter, then the lives that are hurting the most now matter the most. That is, let's use the analogy of a home. If all homes matter, then the home that is on fire matters the most now. Okay, you see their analogy? So if all houses matter, then the house that matters the most now is the house that's burning. Okay. So that's a pretty good analogy. It's pretty good. With 3 caveats. Give me these 3 and I'll agree with you. Number 1, if the houses are on fire, please send people who know what they're doing there. Can we at least agree on that? Amen. Get the house on fire, send people who know how to deal with it. Don't just send anyone. Number 2, I need for you to do this. Please, my goodness, dude. Will you please send investigators and make sure that we find out what's causing the fires? And by the way, don't let them be racist, black or white, and definitely don't let them be government agents. Because both of those are probably prime suspects in the arson. Send the prime suspect to do the investigations. I want to send them. The third thing is, what you might want to also do, and y'all got a part of me on this one, especially those of you that are my race. The next thing we might need to do is send a band of psychologists. Because a lot of our group, a lot of us, we just don't know where we are in this United States of America. We are actually sitting on our couch with an Apple iPhone, with our foot propped up on a coffee table, watching a 50-inch screen, chilling, with our 21-inch rims on our truck. And we're at the same time saying that our house is on fire. You may need a psychologist. A series of them. Character matters, gentlemen. In the middle of this dark world, don't be afraid to speak boldly. As a matter of fact, here, the European response to hearing a black man complain about the modern times, you have this smile that you put on when you're talking. especially the ladies. And you're like, don't, just look straight. Look straight at your fellow man. And when they come with ideas that you know are not for their good, address it accordingly, as if you were speaking to your son or to a friend. Do not apologize. Stand in the middle of the darkness and proclaim light. Do not be afraid. Another thing that God did to tell us about good character is He measured His work every day. It's really quite interesting. So every day goes by and then God will look back on His work and evaluate it. Our work is good. Good. To us, that is an absolute redundancy. Why would God have to review His work? Why would He review His work? He is God, and therefore goodness is implied. It cannot be otherwise. He's doing this for you. Every day that goes by, there should be a conscientious reflection on what you did. Conscientious. No, not smoothed over and no. A conscientious reflection on today's work. Was it good or was it not? And men of good character, at the end of the day, we measure our work. We can't afford to allow time to slip by. We don't have much left. Whether we're young or old, I heard one man say, we're all on our last cruise. There is no time to lose. We measure each day's work conscientiously. Did we do the best we could do? With our wives, our children, the people around us, did we do the best we could do? We have to do that daily. The other thing that God did was He benchmarked quite well. He made certain that He planned out His work week, got things done. By the way, the Sabbath, when it came, we celebrate the Sabbath, and we put religious ideas to it. That's what, by the way, whenever you're reading the Bible, you would do a whole lot better to not read it as a theologian. Just read it as a regular human. Just read it. And just glean the lessons about just being regular human. Too often we go looking for some theological discussion, and we lose out on the reality of Scriptures. The seventh day, you know why He blessed it? He tells you why. I finished my work. Read it yourself. I finished. Again, another great mark of character. People who follow things through. We follow them through. No fear. And whatever comes our way, listen. They have to be worked through. Because on the other side of them is a bigger man, a broader man. They have to be worked through. And we don't consider ourselves done until the work is done. The Sabbath is God saying, all of you, I need for you to work things all the way through. No slipshod stuff with you. No half effort. For you benchmark, fulfill your goals so that at the end of your work week, you can celebrate that it was done and it was done right. It's good, beautiful stuff. There's beautiful things of character. It's remarkable. I have a lot more to say in the book of Genesis, but let's go to chapter 2, because there's some other things in there that I think are remarkable as he goes about to help us in the area of character. In the book of Genesis, we get another account of the creation story. And for this one, since I know we're running out of time, I'm going to just cover it with you. You can follow along. It's in this chapter that God, He speaks to man, to the male. In this chapter, believe it or not, a good portion of this chapter, He's speaking directly to the male human. Not to the man and the woman. The whole first part of this has to do with God's dealing with the male human. It's quite significant, everyone. By the way, and it's not just incidental. God did this on purpose. Our wife was coming later, but God says, I got to talk to my boys. Got to talk to my boys. Eve is not here. This is now between me and you. Number one, God formed man out of the dust. He did not tell us where He got the dust from. By implication, God chose your parents. He gave you no choice. He chose the dust that you came from. And you need to resign yourself to the fact that God knows what He's doing. And don't say to yourself, I could be somebody if only I had a different birth, different upbringing or whatever. Then I could have been somebody. Folks, God chooses the ground that we came from, the dust that we were formed from. Very good that men know this so that we don't get upset with our dads and with our moms and with those our near relatives, and we blame them for why we are who we are in this life. Before we're able to have a happy marriage, before Eve comes, He needs for you to have resigned that where you came from is God's will. Don't back away from it. Embrace everything you can embrace from it. Learn everything you can. Take in all the good. If your dad was a bad dad, well, learn something from it. I think I heard, who was it, Mark Twain? He says, when I was a young boy of about 14 years, my dad was so ignorant a man I could hardly stand to have him around. But when I got to be about 21 or so, I was astonished with how much the old man had learned in just 7 years. There's always something to learn from them. Never complain about the dads. Good lesson of character. The next thing that God did was put Adam in a garden that He made. That is, the environment that you would be raised in is not of your choosing. God chooses the environment as well. By the way, this is for every human that's born into the world. Nothing changed. It didn't change. God chose the ground you sprung from. So just resign yourself that He knows what He's doing. God chose the environment you would be raised in. Oh man, if only if I were of this race or that race, or I mean, folks, if I had my own choice, number one, my parents would have been very rich, and I'd be about 6'4" right now. Neither one of those things occurred. Matter of fact, just the opposite. The environment that we were raised in, He chose that too. And He wants us to be resigned to that. That there's something in that God wanted us to deal with. By the way, He tells Adam to take care of this environment that I put you in. Let it be a challenge for you in your time to beautify the environment that I put you in. To beautify the world that I put you in. When I'm speaking to the children at our school, you don't necessarily have to leave the low-income areas, or to leave the ghetto areas. You were made in the image of God. And there is no force on this planet more powerful than you are if you'll just be resolved that you're going to make a difference. In that garden, by the way, we have these understandings of the Garden of Eden as being an absolute perfect place of pristine beauty. We do that in theology because we're thinking that since God is all-knowing, all-powerful, and all good, the Garden of Eden had to have been in its utter perfection. Not realizing that the garden wasn't there so that God could make Himself look very good. It was put there in order for His sons and daughters to develop. I promise you there were incomplete things in the garden that were made that way so that His sons could develop. Why do we imagine that Adam's environment was so pristine and beautiful? We like that kind of theology for some reason. It's almost like we think that if we only had that kind of environment that we were groomed in, oh, what kind of person could we have been? I can't wait to the end where He brings us to the garden and said, Adam said, where do y'all think I was raised? Well, Adam, in all pristineness. Well, let me show you. And then I think some of us are going to be theologically shocked at that time to see that Adam had challenges. God put them there. The environments that we are in, some of them can be very challenging. God put them there. And He exercises your divine qualities as you confront these world issues, these problems, as you beautify your world. He put Adam there on purpose. We ought to be very courageous, men. We're about to run into some tough times. It's right here before us.
Yes, sir.
It's right before us, everyone. And we still have the assignment to beautify our world. Do not react to the political environment. Don't be reactionaries there. It's just a waste of time. Find people to serve. Find humans to build. Find children to inspire. Don't waste your time trying to argue with weeds that have grown into trees and you're arguing them about what a grapefruit is supposed to look like and what they're supposed to be bearing. It doesn't make any sense to argue with a weed tree, right? It doesn't make any sense and try to speak of grapefruit things and orange things. What we've done is this. We've neglected God's garden, and then we curse it when it grows the stuff that we don't like. We're too busy. We work. We leave the inspiration for men to our pastors while we spend the great majority of our time making dollars. Then, as the result of ignoring our social gardens, it produces all of these weeds, and we don't know what to do with it now. So then we react politically, and we start arguing about the other party, instead of taking the personal responsibility of realizing that God planted you here to beautify your world. And otherwise, we just focus, we say, well, I have my responsibility and everybody else has theirs. And God gave me the responsibility to work and to take care of my family, don't you know? And I have people on my job that I take care of. I'm a business owner. This is my duty. Well, the only problem with that, you limited your assignment to what was convenient for you. God's assignment for us is this, ready? It's you be fruitful. That is, you be individually productive. Grow in character. Do well. Number 2. Plant yourself in others, that is, multiply. Invest in them. Plant who you are in the others. Number 3, don't have a small vision. Don't say, I'm going to select my few. No, fill the earth with what is good and right. Do it. You're not allowed to have a small vision. You were made in the image of God, and He expects you to exercise that big time. You're planning on humans that are not even in your immediate sphere being impacted by goodness, and your eyes are on it. By the way, He gives it as an assignment. You are always to be looking out like that. How better? How more can I bless my world? How more can I change my world? It is your duty to think that way. Not just you and your 4 and no more. No, your eyes are always on the horizon like this. We only live once, everybody. And when we get on the other side, your new house, your new car, your little bit of money, you're going to see the true value of it. Then when you get a glimpse of your fellow man and what could have been perhaps by your manly response to the world you were in, it's then that everything starts becoming very real. And we start realizing that Christian duty wasn't just a church thing. The other thing, he says this, you make certain that the environment, the world, is impacted by your collective productivity. See to it. Make certain that the environment is right. In your own neighborhood, make sure it's right. Family, we deal with whole neighborhoods because we believe that what's bad for the beehive is bad for the bees. However the community is going to be producing is going to produce these humans. And what we end up doing, we end up having the Salvation Army, or we do metropolitan ministry. And what we do is the community is producing these broken individuals. So what we do, instead of going in courageously and beautifying our world, what we do is we set up triage units. This is what church folks, this is church folks, this is what we do. Because it's easier. See, I can live in my world, I can do my thing. So what we do is we create triages. So we have the Salvation Army so that person who's going through, you go there. We have metropolitan ministries and you go there. Then we have the mental health centers, don't you know? And yes, you go there. Then, and by the way, in most churches, we don't deal with any of them. We deal with the normal damage. In this triage unit, all of us are the normal damage. And so all of us are there. So our churches are basically comprised of the normal damage. We send the worst ones to the triage. We triage them out. Then, we're like, wow. And then others we send to jail because you go there. Okay? The reason why we do this is it's our solution. It's the most efficient way, we think, of helping them. No, what the most efficient way is? You go there and make a difference. Beautify your world. You plant. You water. Change the garden, and it will produce different humans. But if we don't have the courage to dive in like that, if we don't have the character to realize our duty, then we're going to be stuck with what the garden grows. And I'm telling you, if we treated our community, if we treated our own home gardens like we treat these communities, we would right now, I heard one man say, we'd right now be living in a jungle of weeds. We must treat the communities like a garden. You got to dive in. It is our duty. God put us here. Beautify our world. Let's make it happen, everyone. I dive into these tough areas I've done it my entire life. And you know, it can sometimes seem daunting until you look into the face of a hardened drug dealer and you fearlessly approach, and you're able to see that behind all of that facade is just a young man. All of that other stuff is facade. It's how they've learned how to relate in this world. It's how their manhood is. It's all they know. And all of a sudden you approach them and you speak in honest terms, and they will allow for that moment because they're hopeful. The human heart gravitates towards hope, and they're hopeful that is, when you're speaking to them, that there is something different about you, and you can see beyond their hardness, and there's a young man in there. It's really something to behold. Really something to behold. The other thing you are to do, that last area of our responsibility, is to exercise dominion. That is, you exercise oversight. It's your responsibility to look at the garden and make certain that bad stuff doesn't just come in, that evil doesn't just do what it wants. You know, in low-income communities, it might take the form of, I might have to cooperate with the police. It's what we do, and if we do find out that we have to deal with certain elements, well, then we go spiritual, but we're not short of calling in the officers as well, because we will deal with the evil that is in the garden. But this is some of the stuff that it takes. So he puts us in the garden. How much time do I have? Because I can talk forever. Where are we at?
You've got 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
Thank you. Puts him in the garden and he tells him to work it. I find that to be absolutely wonderful. The next thing he does is he talks about these trees. Now this is one where Sunday school message, you're going to have to go back to your pastor on this one. You might have to recover from this one. God only named 2 trees. All of them, he says, all of them are for nutrition. Every one of them. If they have the fruit of if they have the seed of a fruit-bearing tree in them, all of it's to be meat for you. It's to be your nutrition. Every one of them. He actually uses the word every. And logically, the word every means that there's not any tree that's exempt. That's what the word every means. Every tree in which is the fruit of a tree bearing seed, to you it shall be nourishment. He goes on to chapter 2. And he says, every tree you can eat from, but one. Okay, you're like, God, come on. I mean, certainly from Genesis chapter 1 to Genesis chapter 2, you didn't learn. I mean, certainly, does God learn? I don't think so. So from Genesis chapter 1, every tree will be nourishment for you. It'll be meat for you. Chapter 2, every tree you can eat from, but the one. And we look at that and it said, that doesn't make much sense. Every means every. Then you come back to the next chapter as if to step back to redact what you just said. And you went now to the exception of one. And we have all kinds of theology around that one. My goodness, everyone. Woo. And some of you are getting mad at me right now. Your theology is about to just hit like that. The first one is the tree of life. And he's telling us, listen, this one right here, take this one in. Everything that deals with nourishment and growth. Everything that deals with the source of life. Everything that deals with building your fellow man and promoting life in them and justice, because you are what you eat. What makes humans flourish? What makes you flourish? Ingest it. I need for you to take it in. I need for you to ingest it constantly. Things that build. Things that help things to grow. Take it in. Take it in. Reflect on the source of life. Take it all in. So that your mind goes there and you start realizing God is in control and He's planted all of this and everything's going to produce what He wants it to produce. And that gives you confidence as you live. You know that His Word is powerful and it will do what He said it would do. So contemplate all of this. And humans, you can plant in them. You can put things on the inside and it will grow. And you learn it. But then there's this other tree. The misunderstood tree. To us, it's an evil tree, right? That's how we were taught in our Sunday. This tree is not to be eaten up front. You don't eat this like that. This tree, its power is going to come on the backside. And this is one of the great lessons of life, and it's one of the great lessons of good and evil. When it comes to people, you're not supposed to go to them with preconceptions of who they are and how they're to be served. You go to the individual and you look for ways to build them. Whatever they bring your way is irrelevant. My job is to promote life in them. To give them the Christ, His character, His life, His death, all of it. To plant it in them. Well, what if they disrespect you and they don't want what you have to give? Irrelevant. Irrelevant. See, this is how it would have been in the beginning. Irrelevant. I don't even call that evil. That's just undeveloped ground. My job is to develop it. Keep paying attention. No matter how they respond to me, irrelevant. I'm going to find ways to build them. I'm going to find ways to plant life in them. What if it costs you your life? The only thing that matters is life. Me helping this individual to become a better form of themselves. The result of that, you're going to learn what is good for this individual and what is damaging to this individual. You're going to learn what hurts them and what helps them. But no sooner than you eat first pleasure and pain, it alters the world. Now you're going to judge things in this life based on pain and pleasure. You're not going to be willing to sacrifice because sacrifice means pain, and pain doesn't feel good, and therefore I can't take that route. We're coming to a time now where you're going to be looking pain and evil and maybe even death face to face. What are you going to do with that? If we're men that agree with Adam, we're going to avoid our responsibilities and we're going to rationalize our avoidance. We're going to justify it. It's irrational for us to behave this way. When the government is saying to do this, we determine we're going to do this. That's irrational, Pastor. Folks, we're coming to that time where you're going to have to count the cost. Is death that evil? Is pain really that evil? We have a job to do here. And by the way, pleasures, are they really pleasures? What do we count pleasures as being? Is it really the food? Is it really the clothing? Is it really their respect that they give us or don't? What is it? You end up learning by just living. You plant life into people, and whatever it costs you to help them, do it. Do it. It's going to make a certain human out of you. Give what they need no matter what. Answer the needs of your time with all the courage you have, no matter what. Do not let what seems to be evil make you stop. All that means that you've befriended Adam and you've caused a fatal blow to your character development, to your divine development. We don't measure things up front by how they feel and how they know. We have a duty. We learn what benefits and what hurts along the way for each individual. And that's why when I pastored, I didn't give much in terms of detailed marriage counseling. Because your wife is different than somebody else's wife, it's best that you study your wife. Find out what hurts her, because that's evil. And then find out what builds her. That will be the good. Yeah, but if I do that, I'm going to have to bear with all of her nonsense. Of course. Of course. Yeah, but she disrespects me. She is your wife. She's meant to broaden you, to enlarge you. Matter of fact, if she agreed with you on everything, one of y'all isn't needed, right? Matter of fact, I'm convinced that He created them to oppose us. Write that one down. That's a serious one right there. He created them to oppose us. It enlarges who we are, develops our character. We learn how to deal with opposition. We learn how to deal. But He did that on purpose. All to develop character. Learn to love no matter what it costs. It's not evil when you suffer. That's Adam's definition of evil. We promote life no matter what. We promote the Christ no matter what. In these low-income communities, we can deal with the partnership of people like you. Men that have a bunch of experience. Men that realize that we're all on our last cruise. What can I do in the low-income community? I can tell you what you do. Partner with Russell and Young Life over there. Throw all in. We only have a little time left, everyone. You partner with Faith Action Ministry Alliance. Find ways that you can partner. We can show you. If you come in here, if you're really willing to help, we can show you what you're able to do. What, in a black community, you're thinking that a white? You have no idea your value to them. Wish I could explain it to you. You have no idea. They're not thinking what you're thinking they're thinking. No matter what you see on TV, forget all that. Forget all of that. They're not thinking what you're thinking they're thinking. Matter of fact, even if you showed up and they act like they're, like they don't appreciate you. Man, I don't need you in my community, man. You probably don't come up there. Don't even pay attention to it. That's all this. That's all this. And just trust me with that, everybody. You hang right in there, continue to serve and love, continue to embrace and counsel, continue to affirm. Keep it going. Don't even worry about it. You're going to have a major impact on those communities. We can show you what to do if that's what you really want to do. Or we just go ahead and ride things out and hope that when we stand before God face to face, that He'll be convinced that the troubles that we had in this world were greater than His power on the inside of us. I don't know about y'all, but I don't plan on standing before God on those terms. Let's leave everything on the field, gentlemen. Let's be men of character. Let's bring everything that we have from our experience to bear. Let's stand in the middle of a dark world and say, let there be light. Let's measure conscientiously everything that we do. Let's determine that at the end of our work week, we'll rest and we're going to be happy about it. And let's not let upbringing, environment, or anything else hinder us from fulfilling our mission. We were made in the image of God. We are His men, and we're going to make a difference. God bless you all.